laws. We have the law of Pesach Sheni, if someone missed bringing the Korban Pesach the first time, some laws for the Levium, and also some of the telling them of some things about the travel that we'll talk about in a moment. Later we have the story when with Miriam and speaking the Lashon Hara about Moshe, and we have the where Moshe, the 70 elders are appointed. Moshe feels the burden. The people have been complaining again, and so a lot of different things going on. I want to concentrate on the trumpets, which is a small little section that not something that we have today, but at the time of the desert, as well as even later when the Jewish people were in Israel, there was a usage of trumpets for certain purposes. And the Torah tells us that Hashem says to Moshe, "Aseh lecha shetei chatzotzos kesef." Make for yourself 2 silver trumpets, and mikshat taseh some. They should be completely out of one piece. So don't just take pieces together. Take one piece of silver, beat it down, hammer it out into the shape, and it'll become a trumpet. And we're going to use these trumpets for 2 main purposes. At least at this point, the 2 purposes were that if we wanted to assemble all the people together, that Moshe was going to talk to them, so they would blow on the trumpets. And the second purpose was when it was time to travel, also they would blow the trumpets and tell them it was time to travel. However, there were a number of differences between the 2 signals, and also even within the assembly of the people, there was a difference as well. And that is that if there were 2 types of assemblies. One assembly was to assemble everybody, in which case we blew both trumpets. The second situation was just to assemble the leaders, to assemble the Nesiim. If they want to just assemble the leaders to have a powwow of the leaders, then they would blow 1 trumpet. And the other difference was that when they were doing the assembly, then the sound that was blown was the sound of a tekiah, and when it was time to travel, it was the sound of a teruah. Now we know what tekiah is, 1 straight sound. We call it a pshuta, straight, and the sound of a teruah is a broken sound, and it's also compared to crying, like a right, the teruah, and it has the feeling of somebody crying or sobbing. So, excuse me, Rabbeinu Bechaya points out that one of the reasons why the difference between having 1 trumpet or 2, when we called the Nesiim, was that the Nesiim were singular, and it says they were miyuchadim, they were special and they were unique as compared to everybody else. That's symbolized by using 1 trumpet, and when you call everybody, so we use 2. And says the straight sound, the tekiah that was blown, represents the idea of midat hadin, which is the attribute of justice, midas rachamim, the midah of mercy. And tells us that there's a verse that tells us that Hashem is his right hand is stretched out, lekabel shavim, to receive penitence. So we have this idea of mercy that's related to this straight thing. The straight sound is going to be cognizant of that. And when it came to travel, he says that it was a trua sound, because the trua is representative of the midah of justice, the attribute of justice, and that's related to battle and going out. He says going out when they travel, that's somehow symbolic of battle. Okay, that's Rabbeinu Bechaya. Rabbi Rosner quotes a more contemporary commentary, it's called the Lev Avraham, Rabbi Avraham Weinberg, who says we can learn 3 lessons from the trumpets. We're gonna be able to learn 3 different lessons. So the first thing he says is when Hashem tells Moshe to make the trumpets, he says aseh lecha, make for yourself. And historically, the trumpets that Moshe had were not used again. They disappeared, they were buried, with exactly what happened, but they were not used by Yehoshua and the next generation. Yehoshua, he made new trumpets for himself to use. And then in the later generation, again, the leaders made new trumpets. And therefore the trumpets that were used in Moshe's generation was just for him. The next one, each one had their own trumpets that were used. And he says the concept, the lesson of that is that every generation is different, and that when you're communicating with the people of a certain generation, the way you did it in the previous generation may not work anymore. That the people, you know how it is now, right? Every generation is different. If you were your parents as parents and grandparents, you can see your grandparents are not the same as you, as your children. You were not the same as your children in terms of how you related to your parents or to everybody else. Same thing with teaching, right? The methods that you used, if someone taught for a long time, you know that the methods you used in the beginning didn't work with the kids you had 20 years later, 30 years later, because just things are different. And therefore you have to adapt. And that's represented by the having every leader had his own trumpets, because that represented the idea that when we're connecting with the people, we have to make sure that we're in tune with this generation and know how to use it. It does not mean, by the way, that we're going to change the Torah in any way. It's just have to how to talk to them. You may have to the tough approach may not work anymore. You have to use a softer approach, things like that. That's one lesson. Second lesson says is that again, that for the leaders, you only needed one and for the people, we needed two because people are diverse. There's a lot of people generally have a large group of people. You're going to have a lot of diversity in terms of their abilities, in terms of their intelligence, in terms of their level of commitment and observance, etc. That's going to be more apparent in a larger group. In a small group, especially of leaders, the likelihood is they're much more cohesive. They're on an intelligence level, they're closer together. On an observance level, they're much closer together. So one trumpet was sufficient because they were closer together. Whereas for the rest of the nation, which is much more diverse, you needed the two trumpets to have a different approach. Also representative of the idea to be aware that even within the same generation, within a large group, you can't treat everybody the same. You need a bit of a broader approach in order to reach them. And finally, he says that the sounds, the tekiah sound versus the trua sound, that the tekiah, which is the straight sound, that's is a happier type of sound. And so when you're happy, we say, people are with you when you're happy. People, when you're sad and you're crying, you're sort of not, you're kind of on your own. People are not as connected to you. But when you're happy, everybody wants to be happy with you. And therefore, he says, we come together in happiness. And the assembly, when we're assembling the people, we're calling everybody to come together. That's and first that we're going to use the tekiah sound, the sound of happiness. But not only that, when we're calling, why are we calling everyone together? We're calling everyone together not just because it's party time, but it's generally because we're imparting something. We're imparting something important. We're imparting lessons. We want to teach people. We want to inspire people. You have to do that through happiness. We don't inspire people through being sad and melancholy. We inspire people through being upbeat and happy. And therefore, the tekiah sound was used to assemble the people. When it came time to travel, so that was a different story. That's a little sadder. Happens to be when they went to war. It's not in this section, but also there was a teruah sound. So again, the idea of the crying sound being when it's not an inspiring time, when it's a more tough time, you're going to use the crying sound. But ultimately, the positive messages that we see from here is though we have to be able to understand that not everybody is the same. People are different. The same methods don't work with everyone, and we have to be able to adapt to the different people that we are in contact with, and to each person deal with them on where they're coming from and who they are, and be able to reach them. And again, the way to reach them is not through negativity or sadness, but it's through positivity and happiness, and that's how we are going to inspire people for the future. Have a great Shabbos, everyone. And
Rabbi.